Hello, my name is Samantha Porter. As many people know, the United States and the world as a whole have been pushing more towards renewable energies, your green powers such as wind, solar, hydro, geothermal. And the intentions of this is good intentions to better the planet, to reduce your greenhouse gases. However, it's having very strong adverse effects on your lower income families across the world. Today, I will be talking about the economic impact that your renewable energies is having, the poverty that it is creating, rather than the good that many people see it doing.
Hello, my name is Tom Francic. Like Samantha said, today we'll be discussing the economic impact of the global push towards renewable energy, especially as it relates to jobs. While Sam is going to be arguing that green energy leads to more poverty, my position will be that the push towards green energy is creating and will continue to create sustainable jobs for the future. Sam, take it away.
Thank you, Tom. As I previously mentioned, the economic impact on the world's focus of green energy is continuing to raise prices on power. This is something that the middle class and the upper class families can handle, these price increases, right? However, our lower income families, our lower class, can't handle these prices and the constant increase in them. In fact, what this is doing is creating what is considered energy poverty.
The average American family spends about 4% of its income on energy, but lower economic groups and people who live in cold weather states can spend a lot more than that. For example, energy costs can eat up 20% of a senior's Social Security income. Families receiving welfare might spend up to 26% of their annual income on energy. During the recession of 2007 to 2010, there was a 48% increase in the number of families that had to apply for government assistance to pay for energy. Almost 8 million households received energy assistance in 2009, a small fraction of those who were eligible for such assistance.
Energy poverty is what happens when a family is spending more than 6 to 10% of one's income on power supplied to your house. And this is unfortunately something that hasn't been taken very much into consideration when we're pushing towards the integration of our renewable energies. Now, Tom, what do you have to say about this?
Thank you, Samantha. I will start off with this. Renewable energy is already creating more jobs. More workers are needed to install and maintain our renewable energy facilities, whether that's installing more solar panels or maintaining our wind turbines. In addition, high-skilled jobs are needed to expand this industry, as this graphic from the Interstate Renewable Energy Council shows. Jobs at all skill levels and all points in the process from beginning to end are needed. Fields like mechanical engineering are going to be increasingly high demand as they design and develop more efficient wind turbines, and more electrical engineers will be needed to manage the changing power environment. According to a report by the International Renewable Energy Agency, globally, the renewable energy sector employed 11 million people in 2018, 700,000 more people than 2017. These jobs help lift people out of poverty and provide a route to prosperity. In addition, the cost will decrease over time as technology becomes more efficient, more developed, and more widespread. The addition of subsidies like those that support the oil and gas industry could make renewable energy even more profitable and less costly to the consumer. Finally, the effects of climate change unfairly affect the poor who tend to live nearer to the plants that pollute the area around them. A good metric of this is the social cost of carbon, which measures the cost of issues like health problems, which is due to environmental pollution, and costs associated with climate-induced or climate-worsened natural disasters like wildfires. Samantha, what do you have to say about this?
While the claim exists that energy prices will get lower in the future, shouldn't we be more focused on the poverty that's being created? We have cases like California and Germany that are showing us our prices as renewable energy is more integrated is not going to go down. As a matter of fact, their prices have been going up as renewable energy is further integrated into their society.
Just take, for instance, what's happened in California. At the period in which solar panels have come down in price very significantly, same with wind, we've seen our electricity prices go up 5 times more than the rest of the country. And it's not unique to us. You can see the same phenomenon happened in Germany, which is really the world's leader in solar, wind, and other renewable technologies. Their prices increased 50% during their big renewable energy push.
Not only that, but many people miss the fact that there are hidden costs that go into your renewable energy sources. Now, when most of us think about our basic human needs, you think about your house as a shelter, right? You think of your food and your water and maybe some clothes, right? What many miss in this is that in order to live in your houses, in your shelters, you need the power that's being provided to them. The power that creates your heating and your cooling and other such. And many families that are already barely making ends meet are being faced with the choice of, do I put food on my table? Or do I pay to have heating and cooling provided to my house? And that's a choice that I think most of us couldn't imagine having to make. Those who are paying more than 10% of their income towards power for their houses are looking at this decision. We have so many low-income families that are already facing the decision of, do I put food on my table or do I power my house? And while 10% may not sound like much, it starts to sound like a lot more when you realize that there are many families across the United States alone that are spending upwards of 25% to 50% of their income towards power. Tom, can you still support sustainable jobs being created compared to this?
I can, Sam. These aren't just future jobs, they are jobs that are needed now. Again, this is not some future trend we will be seeing, we are already seeing it. According to a report by the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, green energy jobs are in increasingly high demand and are some of the highest paid jobs in the report. Like I said earlier, these jobs can help lift people out of poverty, so any additional costs, which again will be decreasing over time, will be more than manageable. If we were to stop spending money on subsidies to the fossil fuel industry and instead were to spend them on subsidizing renewable energy, these concerns would not be as severe if they remained at all. And on to your other point. We need to act quickly on climate change in order to avoid the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius jump in average global temperature that most climate scientists agree would be disastrous. Climate change is already intensifying storm activity and making wildfires worse, as we saw in California and Australia earlier this year. For many in the future, they may not need to choose between putting food on the table and powering their homes, as they might not have either. Sam, are your concerns still as strong as they were before?
Tom, my concerns are still as strong as before. What you may not realize is the government has already been subsidizing green energy for many years now, spending billions of dollars on green energy in an attempt to further push our economy towards using more renewable power. Unfortunately, this is not helping anything though. This power is unreliable, which makes it extremely difficult for us to drive costs down. And in order to use and to install our renewable energy sources, it's doing a lot of damage to our environments that many people are not paying attention to. You talk about the wildfires that happened in California and Australia, but nobody other than the local people see the damage that is caused by installing our renewable energy sources such as our wind farms or wind turbines alone, or even our solar farms. It takes a lot of space that has to be cleared out for either item, and that ruins the ecosystems that they're being installed into. And on top of that, you start looking at our larger endangered birds in the country alone, and you find that wind turbines and solar farms are very damaging to our bigger and endangered birds, such as the bald eagle. They're actually killing our bald eagles as opposed to not being an issue to them at all. Not only is the installation of our renewable energy sources damaging to the environments that they're put into, it starts affecting those hidden costs that I earlier mentioned. This happens when you start looking at installing and clearing out the space to install our renewable energy sources, which takes out agricultural space that we need in order to provide food. This will drive up the cost for food, and on top of that, you are constantly going to be met with resistance from local people. This has already been seen in the past as the U.S. has tried to expand the amount of renewable energy sources that we have tried to install. You will be met with pushback from locals, which in turn will cause there to be legal fees if you still want to push forward to actually zone that land and destroy that land in order to install your renewable energy sources. Tom, can you still support your argument that pursuing green energy is most importantly creating sustainable jobs?
I can and I will, Samantha. While billions are being spent on renewable energy subsidies, much more is being spent on subsidies for the fossil fuel industry. According to a report by the International Renewable Energy Agency, we spend on average 3.5 times on fossil fuel subsidies as we do on renewable energy subsidies, totaling $447 billion. If this support were redirected towards the expansion, cost reduction of renewable energy, costs would drop dramatically. As U.S. energy expert Saul Griffiths writes, the consequences of getting the technology, financing, and regulations right is that we can save every family in the U.S. thousands of dollars a year. And in addition, I'm glad that you bring up the irregularities of green energy. Since sources like wind and solar do not produce energy all the time, we need to find ways to store energy between when it is produced and when it is needed. The field of grid-scale energy storage is rapidly growing and would provide sustainable jobs for millions. While these projects do consume land and resources, they are much less destructive than the fossil fuel industry. Samantha, any final thoughts?
While Tom, you make some good supporting points that green energy is creating more sustainable jobs, I do have to stick with my argument that more importantly, green energy is damagingly causing a higher population of poverty. Pursuing green energy is damaging both to our people and to the earth itself. It has already been raising energy costs over the last few decades now, and it will only get worse as time goes on, putting more people into poverty and creating more damage.
Sam, well, I do think that you have some valid concerns, and I find your concern for less fortunate admirable. Evidence suggests that a shift towards renewable energy creates more sustainable jobs and is a net positive for our country and our planet. Thank you, Sam, for debating me. Thank you to our audience for your time.